electricity theft is a pervasive problem all over the world. But with electricity generation now at the moment standing at about reduced and spent on power, of course, the money is spent by electricity distribution companies. It's been disturbing. It is disturbing that a little power generated is also being stolen, of course, by some unscrupulous consumers. Electricity distribution companies in Nigeria lose about 30 billion naira every month owing to electricity theft. This amount is whopping, and if significantly reduced and spent on power infrastructure and management, it would improve the power situation in the country. Some experts believe energy theft, which is also costing the country about 100 billion naira quarterly, will reduce if the country creates a theft registry. Well, my guest, he is the former chairman at the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC. He also doubles as the director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, Dr. Sam Amadi. Thank you so much for your time. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Doc, I'd like to start this way. What is your first reaction to energy theft? For me, as a consumer, we were told that when we have the special meters, that's the prepaid meters, we would not have this issue of theft. But some people are still bypassing these prepaid meters. So what is happening?
Well, there's no meter that will perfectly eliminate theft of electricity. It depends on the technology of it and the sophistication also of the invader on the network. But primarily, smart metering helps control theft and reduces the losses that the distribution company suffer. So if you have, there are some smart meters that have dual-way communication, which means if anything happens to that meter, the distribution company at their own side can see it, switch off supply if people have altered the meter. So those messages, that intelligence enable them to control, regulate, and estimate or know what supply going to a particular place. So in that case, it helps. But again, people, the notion of energy theft as bypassing meter is not the only form it takes. It takes several forms, but also the collusion between some consumers and some staff of DisCos. So I've seen cases, anecdotes of where the networks staff go around working together with some persons to ensure that they do not pay. They reconnect them, they help them bypass and do all, even when they're triggered or notified to come and intervene, they still help those people to invade dictation and punishment. So you have to look at two ends or three now. First is when you have good supply and when there is good customer relations, you reduce the propensity. It's an economic behavior. The incentive to bypass, to steal power, will reduce if supply is reasonable, good, and reasonable price. So most people will be able to have motivation to pay, even if it's a high tariff, but they pay because the alternative, they are getting more than they're paying compared to self-provision of power. So that depresses the motivation to bypass. Now, when you have a DisCo that's overcharging, as happened in many cases, extended billing, and not providing services, not just power supply, hours of supply, but also ancillary services like we have a complaint, you complain, they respond quickly, they respond fairly, they are fair in adjudicating conflicts around payments and billings and all that, they are transparent and the customer has confidence. Then it reduces the motivation of consumers or customers in this case to invade and attack the network, either in terms of destroying networks or in terms of self connection or in terms of energy theft. That's one aspect. Second aspect is change management. Metering is part of it, better patrol of network, better technology to police the network. The DisCo will reduce the incidence of theft, vandalization, and predation, and as well reduce the losses, mitigate the losses in the event that this happens. That is the other side. And the third side of it is regulation, criminalizing those behavior and providing appropriate but stiff punishment for instances where consumers, attack operators, vandalize the network, or steal power that are meant to be paid for. So when you have these three structural responses strong, then you're going to minimize energy theft. But if only one can do it, if you do a lot of high-level enforcement, arrest, detention, and order, but it's not coupled with improvement in customer relations, change management that improves quality of supply, whether in terms of hours of electricity, or even the quality of the hour or quality of customer care, then you won't be able to deal with this problem. So yes, technology will help us minimize this instance of theft and other forms of attack, reduce the impact they have on the network and revenue, and as well as probably improve our service. That's why technology is a key at the heart of it. But both sensible laws, thorough enforcement of those laws, and good faith management of customer relations are some of the aspects that need to align together.
Interesting breakdown there. But let me follow up with, you answered the next question I wanted to ask. Actually, I was talking about how do we deal with issues like this, talking about criminalizing all of this kind of, because we hear DisCos tell us, and at times they tell us, no, let's just sweep it under the carpet and we don't hear anything about it anymore. That's on one side. But what's the impact really on revenue of DisCos that are still talking about getting a cost-reflective tariff, and now they still have to pay for power that is being stolen?
Well, we talk about ATCLC, aggregate technical commercial collection
Losses.
The problem is that if you look at it's very high. That's why this sector is inefficient. But if you look at that, if we decompose that ATCLC, you discover that perhaps the collection and commercial aspect is high. Both the theft and willingness to pay debts, and those who are metered or who receive bills and don't even pay, and those who steal power, they all constitute the C component of that, which is give and take more than 50% in some networks. So what that means then is that energy theft and lack of payment of bills constitute the major challenge in terms of commerciality of this entity, because the power they bill to them, that they deliver to them, which they bill to consumers, some losses happen which are not captured, but some losses, much of that loss goes to failure or theft of the electricity system and non-payment when electricity is consumed and properly captured either through metering devices, postpaid meters, or through estimated billing. So when you have that kind of situation, the DisCos is losing so much money, and they're not able to. This does not cover for their own inefficiencies in other ways and failures, their own corruption, and maybe excessive personnel and management costs. But wrong lack of efficiency in terms of cost efficiency. But it explains in part why they're not able to remit enough money to the bulk trader to pay for generators, and also has knock-on effect in terms of generators underutilizing their capacity because they probably can't pay for gas, and gas suppliers not supplying enough gas to fire available plants. So it's kind of circles back to a vicious circle, a circle of failure to pay or theft of power, resulting in low revenue for the DisCos, resulting in DisCos failure to settle upstream directors failing to settle debts, gas market, and gas suppliers may be rejecting or channeling suppliers to other alternative industries, competing industries that are able to pay. And ultimately, you have a system that's bankrupt, collapsing, and with low investment. So really, one can argue that in some sense, energy theft and poor payment of bills and other commercial losses constitute a significant part of the failure of the electricity network in terms of its financial bankruptcy, mounting debts, and of course, low bankability and low interest.
Dr. Madi, let's go back to issues around prepaid meters again. I just want to ask if there's any update. Yes, I know you're a former chairman of NERC, but I know you're following developments in the sector. We had the national mass metering scheme at a particular time, and also we have the MAP scheme, that's the meter access provider scheme and all of that. But I still think that the percentage of unmetered Nigerians still remain on the high side. In your thoughts, how can we resolve metering? Because I believe strongly that it's one way. If that is done, it's a plus, at least to help address some of these issues by the time we begin to pay for what we consume.
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you on the importance of metering, mass metering. Right. Now, mass metering implies some kind of outside the market, outside the regulated market intervention. That is called mass metering. Ideally, the market regulated metering is one that the regulator makes allowance for it in the tariffs. DisCos roll out their meter as part of their overall, performance commitments to the market. So they said, look, we're going to roll out 5,000 meters a month, or in 2 weeks, or a quarter. And then the regulator ensures that they do that. Now, that rollout, regulated by the market, captured by the tariff, may not resolve the mounting metering crisis. For example, when we were there, we did the first and only metering inquiry, and it gave us about 40% of metered to 45. Now, it's still about the same number, nothing has changed. So if all that the DisCos have done in terms of metering is not so much disproportionate to new customers who are coming to the network. So see that as the customer numbers are clarified and becoming much more accurate, we discover that we are still at about 40-45% of unmetered customers. Now, what that tells you that the regulated market approach to metering may not solve the problem in record time to improve revenue for DisCos and help consumers do proper energy conservation. So I argue that maybe it's time to think about an extra market intervention, which is what I call socializing metering, providing meter as a way government is providing social transfers for poor persons. So as a form of public good that will help in two ways, help the market to conserve revenue, improve revenue, financial credibility and viability, and also help customers to accept and adapt to what's going to be continuous increase in tariff as we rebalance the market to create more investment and more supply. We're going to see tariffs keep moving. So one thing that can sustain confidence and acceptability of tariff is probably that government provides everybody with that, as everybody has enough they can, so that each person can conserve their consumption and save money and reduce the volumetric impact of rate increase. So it simply means if I have a meter and you have shut up the power by 50%, the tariff I pay, I might decide that in the early mornings when there's not much heat, we're going to open the windows, put on the fans, put on the ACs, instead of using washing machine for everything, wash with hand, use washing machine for some. So I can do that because I'm metered and I'm prepaid. So what I pay, what I consume, I pay for. But if I don't have a meter, then I lack the incentive to reduce consumption in response to price hike. So a typical market response is that when price goes up, you reduce consumption to conserve. But with unmetered customers, they're probably trapped. They can't conserve energy because either way, they're going to be hit with estimated billing, which will not respond to the fact that instead of having light on in the house, 80% of all the time, the NEPA is on, or the electricity sector, electricity company is sending them light. They have it only for 30% of the time. And the meter, they will see savings you save money. But if it's a meter, they may end up paying exactly the same estimation. So the question they ask themselves, why do I have to bother about conserving power if I don't have meter? So the metering would incentivize good customer behavior, conservation of electricity, and on the DisCos side, improve revenue management. So I agree with you that it should be considered in a sense as a public good, as a strategic investment by government in order to help the sector, from bankruptcy.
Finally, Doc, before I let you go, well, it could be a 2-in-1 question, but somehow it's one to me. I still want us to do a little bit of assessing or reviewing investments being made in the sector in recent times. What is your understanding of what's been happening, particularly even from the DisCos side? Because they have an obligation to also invest in infrastructure and improve what they met on ground since privatization. Government also has a role to play investing too. We know of the Siemens deal and all of these deals being sealed up and being signed up for. But in your assessment, is there enough investment at the moment? We're still hovering between 4,000, 4,500 megawatts, at times less than that.
Well, I think on both sides, we can, using the results, the outputs, we probably can say we are underinvested. Well, the second aspect of, and the critical aspect is proper investment, targeted investment. One of my papers I wrote when I was in power, was the 7 disciplines of power sector reform. One key discipline, what I call prudent public sector investment. Government has invested so much as loans, as bailout, as support. But the critical question is these investments, they go through proper relevance and prudence check. When you have a regulated environment, the investment cannot be made anyhow. I had issued previous minister and the president when I said you can't just put 5 billion in our farm without a regulator approving, because that money has to be recovered through tariff. So I would be more concerned about prudent investment, adequate investment. We will also look at the figure. On the DisCos side, DisCos have a commitment, and every quarter or so, even monthly, they send to NEC reports, reports of transformers they have stored based on their commitments for the year or within the tariff cycle. NEC will ensure that they have those quarterly reports they send to NEC, which constitute milestones in their contract performance. And so, if they are not making the committed level of network expansion in terms of transformers or other equipment that they have to invest in terms of metering, then the regulator will know that they are underinvested. It seems to me, without looking at the current thing, that DisCos, all of them are underinvested. And that's why their rate of reduction of losses is very low. But they can argue that they have not been given the right kind of tariffs. There have been, disruptions, interference here and there, and therefore this has kind of affected their revenue, which affected them. But no doubt about that, there have been low investments, not as expected and not as committed by these DisCos. There are various forms of variations from their original commitment. But it's the work of the regulator to examine what they're investing, ensure that those things they are actually invested in, and that their level of investment is commensurate with the commitment they have and the expected operational efficiency the regulator expects of his licensing.
Very interesting conversation with you as usual. I've been speaking to former chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, that's NERC, and he's also the director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thoughts, Dr. Sam Amadi. Doc, thank you so much. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a great day.